Welcome to today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast. We've got Ash from Diamond Quality Gardens, and if you have ever been on the interwebs with your eyeballs looking at hedge trimming work, chances are you've seen something that Ash has done because your content have gone so viral. You do some amazing work. It's pretty crazy, especially because you're telling me you're a pretty reserved guy who doesn't even like social media. 150,000 followers later or something like that. But welcome to the podcast, mate. How you going?
Good, Luke. How are you, mate?
I'm doing well. I've been looking forward to this. We organised this months and months ago, and then just about everything that could possibly happen in life has happened since then. We can talk about that all later. But, mate, you're in South Australia. I think you're the third person from South Australia on out of 70 episodes. So, I mean, I need to up my game with that area. But what's it been like so far this season? I hear it's incredibly wet on the East Coast. It's incredibly dry and hot on the West Coast. And I don't hear anything about the centre of the country.
This is the driest summer we've had here for a long time. So I'm in Mount Gambier, which is four and a half hours southeast of Adelaide. And, we've had some downpours, which has been, a fair bit of rain, but not a lot of days where it's rained in the summertime. So we're in a really dry situation at the moment where the lawns are really, starting to brown off with people that aren't watering and stuff like that, which is a shame because it is a pretty little city and little town. And it's for our line of industry when we see lawns that are not watered and stuff like that, it sort of breaks your heart a little bit.
Yeah, it does. That's what it's been like in Perth because, I mean, Perth is always dry in summer compared to, I know Adelaide's usually dry, so I don't know what Mount Gambier is. Is it typically dry in summer? Do you typically get just enough rain or is it usually pretty wet?
We're lucky to have, in summertime, we're lucky to have 4 or 5 days over 38. And that's about it. We'll have it for 1 or 2 days, and then we'll be back down to mid-20s.
Oh, so, right.
Yeah, not like Adelaide where I was living there when we had that. I think we had 16 days of 38 plus in a row.
Yeah.
And it's such a dry heat there, and where Mount Gambier, you can cool off down in the middle of summer. You can cool down to, I think we had 6 or 7 degrees only a couple of days ago.
What?
In the morning.
As in,
yeah.
Gee whiz, like that's proper winter in Perth.
Yeah.
That's. We've been super hot. I mean, I've talked about it so many times. The podcast, people are probably getting bored, but like we've had so many. It's 35 degrees right now, and on my thermometer that I can see it's almost 6 o'clock at night. It's just. It's been super, super hot, but it's funny. I feel like the last 3 days I'm used to it.
Yeah.
And I realized that when I was at my father-in-law's, and he goes, "Man, it's so hot. It must be 40." And I was like, "Mate, it's like 32. Like, it's a little bit warm, but like, come on, thermometer it's 38." I'm like, "Man, I'm getting used to this." But not a lot of rain. How does it affect your hedging? Like, are a lot of the hedges starting to wilt, or is there still enough there?
No, my clientele is really routine. So they're all on top of their water. I don't look after many watering systems. Like, it's all on the client pretty much that they look after a lot of these. So it's the one less stress that I've got to worry about. There's a couple that I do, and we ran into an issue only a couple of weeks ago where the bore packed up and stuff like that, and it wasn't getting any water. So that can be an issue at times, but no, most of the hedges are pretty healthy where I'm at still. So it's always easy.
Well, I'm gonna put this on the screen because I know most people would have seen your work, but some of you, or for some of the people who haven't, I've started with this because if I go through your Instagram page, you've got dozens and dozens and dozens of beautiful, different spirals and beautiful hedges and amazing gardens. But as a gardener and as someone who's been doing this profession, I am so impressed by how straight and flat some of your long hedges are. And I've commented this in the past, but I look at like these photos and I go, it's just nuts. I know it'll take forever, but I look at that and that almost looks fake. Like it looks photoshopped. Like it can't possibly be real. And then, I mean, you put up these videos. It's easier for me to show photos on the podcast, but you have videos of you in action doing this work. And that is what really, that it blows my mind, because I know it can be done, but there's some things that I look at and go, I don't think I can do that. And that's quite, it's not that it's super rare in the industry, but there's sometimes I just go, I'm blown away by that. So, I mean, firstly, well done. And secondly, how did you get to this point where you are getting your hedges so straight, so clean, so
So this one here, this is on a property where it's about 280 meters of latent green hedges, and it takes me just over a day to do the sides, and then I get a scissor lift in to do the top, which makes it a hell of a lot easier. I had done it for a couple of years on a ladder, and I said to the client, I said, is there any chance that we can get a scissor lift in, because it's going to take the time, cut a lot of time down, and it just wears me out with getting on the ladder and up and down and moving it a couple of meters and then up and down. And so he was happy enough to, hire a scissor lift, and it's obviously improved, because you can, you're on a scissor lift and you can move it out to, a 7 or 8 meter stretch where you just walk along. So that makes it a hell of a lot easier to do.
Well, I mean, that saves you going up and down, but how do you get it? I don't think you're using any string lines or anything like that. It's just eye, right?
Yeah, all eye.
See, that's what's nuts. That's what's nuts about it to me is like, I feel like you give me a 3 meter stretch of hedge, I can do that by eye, right? You give me a 10 meter stretch of hedge, I've got to do so much walking back and forth. Like I cut it, and then I've got to, if it's a high hedge like this, I've got to get down and walk back and have a look, and then come back and then get back at the ladder and walk down and up, and it takes me forever. And is that what you're doing with this?
Well, this one now, I've been doing this for 5 or 6 years now, I'd say, and I do it 4 times a year. So he wants it done. He wants it immaculate. So
is that a lot? That doesn't seem like a lot for a hedge, but I don't know about latent green. I don't know about your climate. So is that a lot for those kinds of plants?
You can get there is ones that I do only twice a year, but you're taking a fair bit off when you're doing them at twice a year. Where this client, he likes it really neat and tidy, and I'll do it 10 times a year if they want to pay the bill.
Yeah, I mean, you can offer.
No, but 4 times is enough. 3 times is good, but that 4th time you can really get it into that really crisp edge. And with this one, I don't really have to line too much up now, because I'm doing it that regularly. I can just go back to where it was, and it makes it easy. So there was a few little waves here and there on the sides, but we've got them sorted out now, and let it grow in certain areas, and comes up a tree. Like, it is my favorite hedge to do, without doubt. It's in a on a busy road, and people just love seeing it.
Yeah, need a hedge your name in the side of it next time, I reckon. As everyone's driving past. Ash was here, spelt wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'd be like the most sophisticated form of bogan graffiti the world's ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mate, oh, man, I think that's special. Like, congratulations on that. I just think I love it. I'm a big fan of that kind of work. It's rare that you even get clients who want, it's rare there wouldn't be many places in the country who care that much about the hedge either. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a slim pickings of people who would have the hedge that is that size to start with, and secondly, have the budget and the intention to keep it looking as good as what you do. So it's kind of like a bit of a rare thing to see. Obviously, there's show gardens and places like that, like Stonefields or whatever, where then it's a little bit different. But this is just a normal, well, not normal, because obviously the person's got a few dollars behind them to afford this. But this isn't a designer garden or anything like this. This is just someone who's passionate about it, right? As a client.
Yeah, and there is so much more to this this garden than you'll see in other photos. But he's great with, if I give him an idea, he'll run with it. So
yeah,
I'm lucky that
is that the same place I've put up here?
No, so that's a different one. It's not far from the other place. But that's not, that's a slightly different variety. It's not as well as the Leighton Green. It's a little bit harder and to keep under control. But that's one that's only done twice a year. But you'd still get a good edge on it. It's not as easy to do with that one because the ground's a little bit uneven in where you need to get the scissor lift in. I do this with a scissor lift as well.
Yeah.
And that's another one that I'd say probably just under 200 meters, that one. And that's another one that takes a couple of days to do.
Have you ever thought about buying your own scissor lift? Do you even know what they cost? I've never even looked into what one would cost.
I did. One of my clients did have a hire company, and I was going to look into just buying an old one that was, not up to standard for hiring out and stuff like that. But there's still a fair bit of money, and if you're only using it, for only 4 or 5 jobs during the year, I don't think it's worth the outlay of money and then the upkeep of it and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I wonder if you could. I'm just thinking out loud here because I reckon that would be one of those things that once you got it, you know what I mean. You might use it a little bit more if you had it. You know what I mean? Like there might be some jobs that you don't quite need a scissor lift. You can get away with a ladder, but when you've got the scissor lift, you take it there and it saves time. I wonder if you could find another tree lopping business or something that would also kind of use it and go halves or something. Although that could end up being like a relationship disaster. You end up fighting over on the same day. But things like that. I mean, I'm going to Google this in the background as well. How much?
Ideally, you see some of them that have, that sign writers and stuff that put up their signs. They're a little bit smaller and would be ideal, but they're not all terrain, so they just don't work on lawn. They're on hard surfaces, they work fine, but when they're on lawn and the ground's a little bit uneven, they just don't work.
Yeah, I know the ones you're talking about. I've used that on here actually to hang things. So like one of those cheap, a little scissor lift like what I've used that is got the tiny little wheels. They're really only for concrete, flat surfaces. Second hand, there's one here, 12,000. That's a 2013 model, 15,000 2018 model. And then if you go to the one with tracks, you're looking at like 30,000 for new, and you're probably using one of those. Yeah, but then there's like $50,000, and
it'll take a long time to get your return of investment for sure.
Yeah. Because that's one of the things about, like, see, $10,000, if it's financed and it's a piece of equipment that you use quite a lot, that might only be $60 a week over a 4-year loan or something. Don't quote me on those numbers, people, but it's not actually that much. If you've got to use it all the time, like $60, $70 a week, in that ballpark. So it's kind of like that's justified, but it gets a bit, you start pushing it, you know what I mean? Like you get too optimistic sometimes, and sometimes people get themselves in trouble. I've seen this a lot with ride-on equipment, that lawn guys. They're like, oh, my 48 inch was good, but I'm going to go get a 72 inch or a flipping massive this for crazy numbers. And then they just don't use it that much. And you really don't make any money off it,
Yeah.
It's official. We are doing a live podcast tour across Australia this winter. That's right. I'm packing up with the family, bringing the kids along, and we're driving through Australia, and we're going to go to lots of different places, interview people in situ, where they're from, ask some great questions. And you know what? We're going to do live events, and you're welcome to come. Now, there's some details that are going to come out in the future, but if you've got any ideas, you've got anything you want to say, hey, you should get this person on, or you should do this, or you should please come to my country town. I know it's small, but we can get enough people. I'm happy to go, because we don't need big crowds. I'm not looking for necessarily big crowds. We're just looking for a good time. Anyways, send me a message if you want to get part of that conversation, either in Instagram or LinkedIn. They're the places I check the most. And do you know what? I hope to see you on the tour. I'll let you know when we got some event dates and specific things going on, and the people who are supporting it, because it's not happening in a vacuum. There's a lot of cool stuff happening. Anyways, I'm not going to talk. I'm going to talk too much if I share too much information, if I keep going. Get in contact, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'll see you hopefully in the live events, but definitely back into the podcast. Do you know, for the last few months, I've been working on a course to help people start and run a successful lawn mowing or gardening business. I've had a lot of questions over the years from people asking for coaching or asking for some sort of advice, and I'll help out as much as I possibly can. But at the end of the day, there's a limit to how much you can write in a comment, and I don't really have the time or skill set to do coaching. And so we've made this course from scratch. It's 47 lessons, over 6 hours of content. It is not a short little course that you can get done in a weekend. And also the price reflects that. But if you are somebody who is wanting to get into the industry from a different industry, or you're somebody who is really great at gardening, but maybe you need some help on the business side, I think the value for money is off the charts. I honestly think that if I had this course myself when I was first starting out, or even the first few years of business, it would have saved me years and years and years of heartache and mistakes and pain, because a lot of us were making the same mistakes that I was making all those years ago. And it can be avoided. If you are somebody who that sounds interesting to you, check out the link. Oh, I should also say there is an exclusive group as well. It's not just a course. There's a group. You have conversations, ask questions, all that sort of stuff. I want it to be as helpful as possible. I want people to succeed in business, because I think small businesses are awesome, and I think the gardening and lawn care industry is even better. So if that sounds like it's of interest to you, there's a link in the description. Check it out, and I'll see you there if it is the right thing for you. Anyways, let's get back into the podcast. Is there anything else like that you look at and you go, I wish I had... is there anything else that you think could make your hedging more efficient, better, but it's just maybe you've never had the chance to try it, or it's just too expensive, or any little weird tools, niche tools, even if they're not expensive, maybe just something that you've thought about trying but never really got a chance to use?
No, well, not really. The Scissor Lift helped a huge amount. But I've got 4 or 5 different long pair of hedge trimmers that I use on, just some hedges. I'll only use one particular hedge trimmer on it because I like the weight of it. And, I've got telescope ones and battery ones and petrol ones and, just things like that. But it's more, you get comfortable with using certain equipment on certain jobs and stuff like that. The one that I use on that hedge in particular, it's a relatively new one, but it's battery, but it's 3 speeds, and I don't need to use the fastest speed on it because it's easy enough to go on, the medium level. But you put it on the fastest speed, it just chews through the battery.
So is that I see that you use a lot of steel stuff. Have you got some sort of they send you stuff out, or is there some sort of it seems like a sponsorship? Yeah, so that's cool just to start with, isn't it? Like
but not all of them. Like, I've brought a lot of I was using steel products before they approached. And all that sort of stuff. So I was tagging them in my reels and stuff like that. And I got a good relationship with the steel shop in Mount Gambier, and the rep was over from Melbourne one day, and they mentioned me to him, and we had a chat a couple of weeks later, and it took a while to all come on board and stuff like that. But like I can't fault the stuff, and not very often that you get someone with that sort of well known approaching you to use their products.
Yeah, it's very cool. I've been using steel stuff for years, and then through the podcast, I've been able to have conversations with a lot of different brands, and I think it's a fascinating world because you things are going from the petrol to battery, and quite rapidly, really. Yeah. And I feel like battery, I'm no expert on this by any stretch of the imagination, but it feels like battery is a simpler thing to get right. Like a combustion engine, there was a big difference between the rubbish brands and the big brands and the good brands, and it still was one of those big good brands. And you knew, there's a few others as well, like Echo or Husqvarna. I think people love Shindaiwa, those sorts of brands. But they love. There's a few of them that were great, and then you knew just stay away from anything else. It's going to break down. It's going to be difficult. But now, electric motors are as far as I'm aware, one moving part. And the batteries, a lot of them are, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but a lot of people are sourcing their batteries from the same suppliers, the same places. I know there's certain businesses that are and aren't. So all of a sudden, things are so much more competitive now. And so I'm just thinking from a business standpoint, if I'm still and I want to keep on, I'd be sending Ash from Diamond Quality every single thing he ever wants, because it's keeping that that view of like, because what you're doing is amazing. The work is amazing. You got a massive following, and be like, yes, we want to, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of, I guess what I'm saying is it used to be the case that still could kind of, and Husqvarna, and I'm not speaking on behalf of them or anything, I'm just saying those big brands could sort of say stuff you to the little guy because they were so much further ahead of everybody else. But now it's kind of like, oh, things are changing. They get, I don't know, maybe, it's not the same as it used to be.
Yeah. Battery definitely is a game changer. I was running a bit of bush ranger gear previous to steel, and they're good products, but they're heavy. And when you're waving a pair of hedge trimmers around for 7 or 8 hours a day, you do feel it towards the end of the day. And and battery is obviously a lot less noise. So if you do work in an area that you can't use you don't want to rock up to someone's house at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning and blast a pair of petrol hedge trimmers around, where battery is, a lot quieter and it's easier on the ears, and
it's a lot smoother in your hands too.
Yeah, and it's a lot, no vibration, and most of them, but the weight is my biggest issue.
Have you ever cut yourself with the hedge trimmer accidentally?
Yes.
Yeah,
long time ago.
Here's one of the things we got.
Two fingers off.
Oh wow, that's bad. Tell me about that then.
Yeah. Well, when I was back in Adelaide, it was just a dumb thing by me. It was all on me. It was no one else. I just finished trimming a little bit of plumbago, and I had the hedge trimmers facing away from me. And I was pulling down on some of the stuff that I'd trimmed. And as I've pulled it, I've gone and you might be able to see.
Oh yeah,
there we go.
that
I've
scar
got a
there on the
line there.
side. Yeah, I can see that.
And and they were blunt.
Oh no!
But they did a good job. So yeah, ducked off to the doctors, and a few stitches later. So I've learnt my lesson. I've come close a few times. I've nicked my shoes quite a few times and stuff like that. And I had a guy working with me only 6 months ago, and he got a bit too comfortable, and he took a big gash out of just above his knee.
Yeah, see, this is what I was going to say, because we got that when we first got the steel battery stuff. The first thing I bought was a hedge trimmer. It's about 3 years ago when that hedge trimmer was new. And one of my most experienced employees was using it. And because it's so quiet, I think it lulls you into a false sense of security. Because we're used to engines being loud and noise, be like danger, danger, danger. Anyway, he just kept cutting and just kept going and hit his own knee, like just above the knee, like what you were saying, because that's where the hedge height was. And it's like, is that the kind of the same story that happened with your employee?
Yeah. So he was only working with me for a little while, and I gave him a chance to get on the hedge trimmers and things like that. And it was about 8:30 on a Friday morning, and he just got a little bit too comfortable and nicked just above his knee, and it was like a shark attack. It was jagged, and he got I think it was about 10 or 15 stitches. And it's a
that's
nasty scar
big.
now. Yeah.
Oh, that's worse than the one we had. I think Elliot had about 4 stitches when he did that. Like it was a nick. He just nicked his knee. But I mean, it was a brand new hedger, like weeks old, sharp as, and he kind of didn't even really feel it. He just knocked his knee and it was like, oh, whoops. And then all of a sudden, oh, that's a big cut. And then, straight to the hospital or the doctor. But yeah.
Well, I turned around and I seen him crouching down, and I'm like, what's going on? And he didn't even come, and I was literally working 5 meters away from him, and like I was busy doing my own thing, and then I looked over and he was crouching down, and I'm like, what's going on? And it's like, oh, I've just cut myself. And I was like, well, show me. And then, there's a fair bit of blood, and, patched him up and got him off to the hospital, and spent the whole day up there before he was seen. And but he learned his lesson. I guess it was just a horrible way to dawn it.
Yeah, I'm used to the pole hedges more than the handheld hedges. For many years, I just ran like a combi unit and chucked the hedger attachment on when I needed to. And to be fair, it's not a big part of our business. Kind of never has been. Well, not really. Yeah, a big part of the business. More lawns and kind of general gardening, which obviously involves some form of hedge trimming, but not like a specialist like what you do. So for me, I just keep that attachment in there, and I also feel like it's safer like that, because it's just a lot further away from your body usually. But then again, if you're doing a lot of it, you can't do everything with to the degree that you're doing with one tool. You need a selection and the best tool to suit it.
Like I see a lot of guys on Instagram that they're using the long trimmers to do a hedge that's only waist high, and I would never do it. I don't know whether I'm doing the wrong thing or they're doing the wrong thing, but I use the short trimmers for whatever I can. I got more control over it, and I feel like I get a better result. Like sometimes with the long ones, especially on a hedge that's not very wide, it's just got no control over it. But hey, that's me. Like everyone, gets the results the way they do it. But I'm more comfortable with using the short handle hedge trimmers over the long ones.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Craig Sullivan, who's in LA where you used to be, and he was talking about how he was using the Makita 3 pivot handle hedger, and I'd held one of them before. I never really properly used one. And anyway, AEG sent me a bunch of stuff, and they sent me their 3 pivot handheld hedger. And he was kind of swearing by it. Like at first he thought it was weird. Now he loves it and he can't use another style anymore. Like he just wants to pivot the handle. And I pivoted the handle to see what he was talking about. And I'm like, this feels weird to me. Do you know what I mean? It's such a personal preference thing.
Absolutely. I ran Shindawa when I first started Diamond Quality Gardens, and they had the pivot handle, and I use them, with my previous job and stuff like that. I use the Shindawa ones for probably 5 or 6 years, and I never once trimmed by moving the handle. I just got so used to doing the way that it was. It felt awkward for me to pivot the handle. It was just, and then you got to pivot it back, and so I just got so used to just using the way that it was. So,
well, I guess with
comfortability is
those
a huge thing.
machines, yeah, but it doesn't matter in the end of the day. Like, because if it's a good hedge trimmer, it's a good hedge trimmer. You can just lock it in that position. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
I always feel like I need to try it in a weird position on like my mum's garden or my uncle's garden, some family, where there's nothing to lose, and just see, because maybe you do get a feel for it. But for me, the other thing about hedge trimmers, I don't have a very good back, and so you're talking about low hedges, people using pole trimmers. I would fall into that category if it was a long hedge, because if I can stand up straight and hedge, I'll use the normal short hedger. But if I've got to bend over and that half bent position, you know what I mean? Like, I just can't do that for ages without having a problem, like getting stiff. Rose pruning is the same for me. Like, I end up rose pruning on my knees sometimes because you get that awkward height and you don't know what to do. And it's like this bending in those weird positions for too long. I just can't. It just doesn't suit my body. So, but I mean, I was going to ask you this, like, because how do you feel about this? Because we're not getting younger. None of us are. And hedge trimming it's a workout, right? It's a physical job. Is this something that you think about and go, how long can I keep doing this? Yeah, bending over, reaching.
18 months ago, I had back issues with bulging discs, and
Oh wow,
I do box hedging is the number one seed for me. I do kilometers of it year round, and when the lower they are, the worse it is for me. But like, there's days where one of my clients down here is the Barn Steakhouse, and they've got, if I did all of box hedging all in one here, it would take me over a week just to do the box hedging. So, I'll try and do a day, one day, and then, the following week I'll do another day of doing them. But it gets stiff. It does. You get half an hour into it and you think, oh, I've got 7-8 hours of this to do. How am I going to get through it? And then your back just gets in a position that it gets comfortable in, and I guess I'm used to it now. But it does take its toll on your body for sure.
I wonder if there is something like, I've seen these with mechanics. They have these like very adjustable chairs. I've seen it on reels and stuff like that with mechanics, where the chairs, they can literally lie the chair all the way down and then sit the chair all the way back up again, still staying in the chair, if that makes sense. So you can sit on the chair, work on stuff, adjust it to a lying position, roll under the car, work on something, come back up again and come to a seating position. And it's really fancy I mean, I don't know if they're something for sale or was a prototype. I just remember it's just triggered this video. I wonder if there's something like that could work on outdoors. Obviously, something for a mechanic is, on smooth concrete, but I wonder if there's an invention like that allows some form of movable seating, so you can at least change up your position or something. And because even like with this podcast. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you go.
I had a look at one of those mechanic little stools on wheels, but the only thing is, you can't use them on grass or in garden beds. Like, it's only on hard surfaces. So you're only, and not a lot of the time they're on hard surfaces. Like, some of them are just solely in garden beds that you can't access anything, with the onto the lawn and stuff.
Yeah. I've also thought about, like, those hoverboards, or the big Segway ones, some of them you used to have the handles and stuff. I was like, I wonder if you could just set the hedger at hip height, you know what I mean? And then just drive forward and cut it in one foul swoop. What do you reckon?
Yeah, you see the funny reels on Instagram sometimes, and they, people holding the lawnmowers up and just pushing them over them on the hedges and stuff like that. Like, yeah, it'll be great if you could come up with some sort of thing for box hedging where, you've got your three sides, and adjust the width of it and the height of it, and you just run it over it.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
A box hedge, and it comes out, perfect. But hey, we wouldn't have a job if it was that easy.
That easy, yeah. Well, I still feel like there's certain people who, you know how it is. It's like ride on lawnmowers. It's such an easy job to do, and some people love sitting on a ride on lawnmower and doing their own lawn. Some people, that's the last thing they ever want to do. They would hate the idea of doing that. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, even if the job's easy sometimes, just some people just hate it. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like, the easier you make it, the less people are going to want to, get you to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on, because you tell me in the background that you, so here are a few things. You used to work for a big countrywide, or national, I should say, garden maintenance business. And it sounds like you were a team leader or some sort of role at that place, looking after a big site. And then you've gone out to work on your own. What is it like going from the safety and security, but I guess maybe the monotony of working for one of those big companies, to an exciting, vibrant, challenging, and scary often of working for yourself?
Well, I had no choice.
Oh,
So
wow.
I left them, and they were going to try and set me up in Mount Gambier. So I took my long service leave, and it was over Christmas. And then a week before my long service leave was up, they told me they couldn't do anything. So I was in a situation where I've just wasted my long service leave and with no job. And so I had to go out and buy tools and come up with a business name and move to a town where I knew no one other than the family. And I approached the Barn Steakhouse down here, which has got beautiful gardens, and approached them, and I said, look, this is what I do. Give me, let me have a day's work and see what you think. And they did. And by the end of that day, she said, can you come back and do another day this week? And, that turned into, a few days. And then within a couple of weeks, I was going back there on a regular basis. And to this day, I'm still there. So
it almost sounds like you, it's funny because it's like you would be seen, and now we'll talk about whether or not Instagram is a true measure of business success, but as someone with a massive following, you would seem like someone who's really like a lot of people who have those big followings on Instagram are really planned out, thought out with how they're going to do their content strategy, how they're going to run their business, and all that kind of stuff. And then it's kind of the opposite for you. You're not a social media guy. You didn't even think, or you didn't even plan, this is how I'm going to start this. You just started doing the work. And then all of a sudden, followers come and all of a sudden more business comes. Is that kind of the story?
Yeah, well, I've only done Instagram for just on 4 years. It was I didn't like social media, and I'm still I still haven't even opened Diamond Quality Gardens Facebook page, and
well, I think 150,000 followers, you're fine, mate. You don't need a Facebook page. You know what I mean? You'll survive.
But as I discussing with you earlier, before we started recording, it wasn't something that I set out to do. It was just I wanted to show people what I did. You can tell everyone what you do, and oh yeah, I do this and I do that, and there's X amount of meters and all that sort of stuff. But until people actually see what you do, they're blown away when you can actually show them in photos and videos and stuff like that, rather than just trying to say what you do. And it took a little while. You start posting things, and few things hit, and few things don't, and you get traction there. And sometimes I post things and I think, oh yeah, this will do well, and it does nothing. And then something I'll just throw up. Like the first reel I had that hit 1 million views, I had no idea. It was just something that I had in my phone for probably 12 months, and I thought,
oh wow,
I'll just chuck it up, chuck a song to it, and I sort of forgot about it. And then I was getting all these notifications on such and liking the reels and all that sort of stuff. And anyway, I went and had a look on the views on it, and it ticked over 1 million views, and I was like, wow, like what I think was really boring, some people like. I like turning things into cones into spirals, and but I try and put that up as a reel, and it gets no
nobody
traction.
cares. Yeah, no one cares.
Where I've found if you take big chunks off hedges, like if you want to do skim the top of a box hedge, no one views it. But if you take, 1 meter off a bit of sporum hedge, all of a sudden people can see the change in it, and they like watching it. So,
if you have been going to those big hardware stores, big nurseries, the place I'm talking about, to get your lawn care and some garden care products from, well, at the end of the day, here's my honest take. Whilst there are some good products there, if they are good products in very small quantities and the price is so expensive for a commercial operator, it's just not really a viable option. The cheaper stuff, well, it's cheaper for a reason. If you're looking for a new supplier, I highly recommend the Lawn Shed. They have a trade account. Long-time listeners know that they've been a sponsor for a very long time, and hundreds of people have signed up to the Lawn Shed from this podcast. They are honestly the place that I get my stuff from. It's actually pro-grade stuff used at stadiums. We've talked to different stadium managers here that on the podcast that have used it. It's really high-quality stuff, and they have so much product, so much range that I'm sure there's something that's going to suit you. If you're looking for sprayers and spreaders and all that sort of stuff, there's actually a lot of interesting tools there as well, not just products. Perhaps there's a good fit for you. If there is, jump on the website, sign up, and when you sign up, say that you heard about us through the Australian Lawn and Garden podcast, or you can click the link that's in the description. Either way, that helps support the podcast. And so, look, if you're spending money at those big shops, I understand it. Sometimes it's the most convenient thing possible. But do you know what? Getting that better, high quality stuff, I have found personally, and this is my honest experience, The higher quality stuff got better results. Those better results got me more income. And ultimately, it was a massive return on investment, not just ticking a box for a product. Anyways, if you're interested in that, jump on the Lawn Shed, and I'll see you in the podcast. I'm going to put this.
Confused.
I'm going to put this up because you were telling me before. I remember watching this 36 weeks ago. You did this video. I didn't think anything of it. I mean, I was like, oh, he's doing something. No worries. But you're cutting. I'm going to describe this for people who are listening. You are cutting down some, well, trees. It's probably too generous. They're probably twice your height. Big shrubs, but they're trees. You know what I mean? For those who are listening. And you're cutting down 3 of them. And it looks like a normal gardening job to me. The comments, though, I'm going to read some of them out. Goodbye, nesting birds. The biggest stupid idea. Why are you unnecessarily cutting down trees? Look so much better before. What is the matter with people? This is the most stupid thing I've seen in a while. It was much better with the trees. Anyways, it's just the consensus is that this video was a fail. But thanks for sharing the client brief. I mean, it's just it is just so many. There's vomit emojis. There's the after looks dry, dull, and soulless. Man, this is nothing. Like, this is just a normal gardening job that you're doing. Like, where is all this hate coming from?
I thought I was a Kardashian for a week or so, copying that much hate.
Do you know, I look at you and I think, yeah, he's a Kardashian. Yeah, just
yeah, it was ridiculous. Like, I spoke to the client 6 months prior, with the idea of doing this to open. It's on a hill, so they've got a view, and it's taken 90-degree view out of their property.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with the box hedging, big square blocks of box hedging, it looks so much better now. And some of the trees on the backside of them was, they weren't looking very well. So I discussed it with him, and they said, yeah, go ahead. So I liked it. I thought it was a good little reel, and all of a sudden I just copped a heap of hate. And you've got to restrain yourself from actually commenting back sometimes, but
well, do you know how many views it got, the video?
I can't even remember now. It was over nearly 500,000, was it?
I don't know. I can't see on this view.
Yeah, it was.
It
was something. But it was a simple thing. I just thought I'd like to see the before and after, and how it was done, and stuff like that.
Well, it's got 8,000 likes, but I don't know. Man, but it's kind of one of those things where there must be a lot of people. No, I can't find it. How much views? But there must be a lot of people who looked at that. By the way, how's this light on my face? Hey, the sun's setting. I've never done it. I've never done a podcast where this happens. So for those who are listening, if I sit backwards, my face is so strongly lit up because the sun is setting and it's just going. I have 3 small windows in this warehouse, and I somehow copped it directly to the head on one of them. I've got to lean forward, I got a secret for you, Ash. I don't actually. I'm just getting out of the sun. Anyway, back to this. It's funny. The internet's weird like this, right? Like that. To me, because what got me onto this talking about this is you're saying like there's these reels that you think are nothing. As a gardener, this is a normal, everyday gardening job of just the client goes, "Hey, I got some 3 small trees that I'd like to get rid of them." I just don't get it, man. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, sometimes simple is more effective. To me, just the box hedging there in the 3 squares, that's more appealing than some shrubs that are just not doing well.
Yeah, and they're a little bit like it's not that they're too big for where they are, but it seems crowded, And
yeah, so it was only I'd probably trim them once a year into some sort of shape, but over time they just said let's just leave them and see see how we go. And they eventually gave me the all clear to remove them.
Tell me about this, right? This might be a little controversial, but I think you're the right type of person to answer this question. Do you think that there is a correlation between Instagram numbers and how successful a business actually is? Because there's one side of it. Okay, no, but I want to get your thoughts deeper on this, but I want to set up a little bit more. The first side is that, like, it's hard to get followers when you're just doing rubbish work, right? So I think a lot of people who have low follower counts are probably not doing that great of work. But then on the same side, you can kind of game it a little bit. You can game the algorithm and you can get a lot of followers doing, playing the game. You straight away said no. So what are your thoughts on this?
There's a guy that I used to do a bit of work for. He's a good mate of mine. He's Defining Garden, and he hasn't got a big following on Instagram. I don't know why, because he does some amazing work in Adelaide. It's whether, I don't know. I've struck it lucky with some reels and stuff like that, and I've just got a following. I don't know why. As I described myself, years ago to people, I was just a gardener, like a busted ass gardener that I love doing what I do, and but there's more to it. Jason, he does some fantastic job.
Is this the account that you were talking about?
Yep. So he's, but you've got to be. You've got to be smart in how you take your photos and what reels, what angles you use and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't understand how he hasn't got a bigger following. He does some really amazing work. But I've just been lucky I've hit on a few reels and and away it went.
Yeah, I'm looking at this stuff in for those who are just listening, we're in the Defining_Gardens, and yeah, beautiful work, great gardens, great hedges, everything's really healthy. Like you're right, like this isn't anything that's what I say. I'm looking at amazing gardens, but I'm not looking at things that it doesn't make sense as to why. I guess I'm not looking at anything that's so too different from what you're doing, I guess, which is what you're saying, really, isn't it?
Yeah. But we worked together years ago when I first got into the industry. He was the guy that I did my first day of work with, and 20 years later, we're still best mates. So I just moved away. We worked together for 4 or 5 years, and then I did a little bit of work for him here and there, and then moved away. So I think Instagram, you've got it's a hit and miss. You can put it on some certain time and you'll get a lot of traction really quickly, and then other times it's just where your following is and what people do. And I always thought that it was, I knock off from work and I sit at home and have a beer and post something, or because everyone's checking their phone after work. So I was getting traction through that, and now it's all got to do with whether the music's popular or things. But I just put a few tunes to it that I enjoy, not so much what's trending or things like that. But it's crazy. Like sometimes you can actually lose. I can't get followers now. I don't know why. I put things out there, and I think Instagram's got some sort of situation where you get to a certain limit and you can't gain any more traction. So you lose followers every day. I was listening to Looking in Good Nick podcast the other day, and you check, and there's days where you're losing a couple of hundred followers and stuff like that. So I just it doesn't bother me now. Like, I just put out the content, and if people like it, they like it and view it, and if not, well, we'll try something new.
Yeah, I do find it a bit weird. Like, for me, I don't like to go down that whole like algorithm thing. Like, I'm the same as you. Like, I'm just gonna put on a song I like. Problem is, "Strawberry Kisses" by Nikki Webster is never trending, and and I just think that's the best song ever written. So. But yeah, it's the same thing. It's like you put on a song that you think is good, and then I'm sick of all the trending songs. Like, it puts me off. Do you know what I mean? Like, it puts me off watching a reel sometimes when it's like, I've heard that one 75,000 times already. It was fine the first 4 times, and now I'm like, I almost don't want to watch your reel. Like, it's a good joke or it's a nice work or whatever. But I kind of don't want to finish it with the trending music. It's too much.
With Taylor Swift touring Australia at the moment, like, it'd be good to put Taylor Swift songs out there, but I couldn't stoop that to that level.
Although, you know what I mean? Like, I don't mind. The problem with Taylor Swift, I don't mind Taylor Swift's music, but it's one of those things where she's one of these artists that, for me, if I don't hear her for 6 months and then I listen to one of her songs, I'm like, this is a nice song. But the third time I've heard it in a few months, I'm like, it's not quite my style. It's not horrible. Like, one of the weird artists that's like that for me is Keith Urban. I don't know if you've ever listened to anything Keith Urban, but he's got this song called Sweet Thing, right? It's a cheesy, corny country song, but I reckon once a year for me, just to hear that song, and I'll enjoy it. It's just like, it's a flavor that I don't like too much, but I'll listen to a single Keith. I'll enjoy it and I'll be happy, and just don't put it on again for another 12 months and I'll be good. Some music that's like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I see. I put a lot of country rock to my songs, but it's songs that I enjoy listening to, and it's all about the entrance to the song for me. I don't like to put too much actually lyrics in there. It's more the tune leading up to the song that I put onto mine.
Other than the Australian Lawn and Garden podcast incessantly in your ears, what else do you listen to at work?
Podcast all day.
Are you the sort of person who can listen to, because here's the thing that's funny about me is I get bored of, because I'm doing these podcasts, right? And I love doing the podcast. And then I kind of have to sometimes listen to my podcasts again for editing or whatever reasons, check over something that Joseph's done, the edit, whatever. And so I feel like I've been digesting so much gardening content. And then I have all these people I've had on who have YouTube channels or whatever. And I feel like I want to keep up to date with their stuff and just be, supportive. And then I get to working and I'm mowing a lawn. The last thing I want to do now is listen to another gardening podcast. I feel like all I've been thinking about is gardening all day, and I just want to listen to someone talk about the English Premier League or what's happening in the cricket, or
a lot of mine
is
like all sport related. Is a lot of mine. Aussie rules, cricket, American sports, all that sort of stuff. It's the routine for me. Like, I listen to the same ones pretty much, day in, day out. So it's like just having the radio on in the background.
Yeah, and they're mindless enough, but also not stupid. Do you know what I mean? Like, some podcasts I've listened to, it's just waffle. Some radio shows, you're like, you guys are idiots, and it kind of frustrates me. A bit grumpy like that and judgy sometimes. But sports stuff, I don't know. It's kind of stupid enough that it's not taking up brain energy, but it's not dumb enough that I get annoyed at it. That's just how I feel.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like some. Have you ever listened to Theo Von? Have you ever heard his stuff before? No. So Theo Von is this American comedian, and he's got a podcast, and he is the craziest dude, man. Like, he is so funny because he his sense of humor is so strange and it's so weird. And he's got so many stories from his past that are just so messed up, like
Do you listen
drugs
to
and
the?
stuff. And it's one of those things where I just get into a Theo Von mood sometimes. And I reckon it's
Yeah.
once a month, once every 6 weeks. I'm like, I just need that level of stupid but also clever humor. Like, you know what I mean? I just need that sometimes. Now I've gotta send you something that you can listen, because it's there's nothing like Theo Von out there. His humor is just so strange, but it's so good.
The Alpha Blokes podcast is a good one that gives me a chuckle during the day. I don't know if you ever listen to those. It's two ex mining guys out of Queensland that started up a pod, and they've gone full time with it now. They've given up their jobs and stuff like that. So the guys ring up and tell funny stories and stuff, and it's gets me through the day sometimes when you're just feeling, that you need a bit of a laugh to, pick the mood back up and stuff. So
Yeah. I
it
know what
gets
you
me
mean.
going a bit.
Is there a podcast? Is there anything else there? Because I mean, for me, I'm pretty stock standard in some of the stuff I listen to. I'm also very nerdy sometimes, so I like listening to really. I mean, this is the weird stuff that I get into. I love listening to like debates on topics that I'm interested in. I've always been interested in, not to get too deep and meaningful on a gardening podcast, but religion and where did we come from and where's the universe from? And so I love those kind of topics. They're too heady. I can't handle them too much. But sometimes sitting on a rider mower, give me some scientist talking about something really crazy and deep and like something. I'll pretend that I understand what they're talking about with physics or something. Like, I don't have a clue, but I'll pretend. It makes me feel smart for an hour or so. So I like that kind of stuff. Joe Rogan's a staple. I can't go through phases with him where I'm like,
his go for too long though, for my liking.
it depends on the guest, but I agree. Sometimes I feel like if it's not the perfect guest, I just can't. But some people he gets on, I love some of the weird ones he gets on where it's like fascinating. Like I remember years ago, he got a guy, it wasn't actually that long of a podcast, maybe 2 hours, hour and a half, but he got a guy on who was wrongfully charged and sentenced for murder before they had DNA testing. And then 20 years later, they were able to test some of his DNA and he got acquitted. And he spent 20 years or 15 years or something crazy in prison. And those podcasts are like, oh, that's real interesting, But sometimes when he's just chatting with some of his buddies, I mean, I love chatting with my buddies too, but I can't make it 3 hours,
Yeah.
I've got
Lance Armstrong had a podcast that I used to listen to a fair bit, but he's gone off that the last couple of years. But he had some interesting guests.
All right. Did he have like his dealer and stuff?
Yeah, he wouldn't go too deep into his own situation.
Oh, mate, you wouldn't. I'm trying to turn my light on if you're wondering what I'm doing, by the way. I haven't thought about this, but it's 6:45, so it's starting to get dark. I'm like, I didn't charge my light. I've got a light here. Anyways, so Lance Armstrong. What else? What does Lance Armstrong talk about? Is he just cycling? Are you into cycling?
No. He one of the real good guests he had on. She set up her own illegal poker tournaments and stuff like that. Now they made a video, a movie on it. It's called Molly's Game.
Molly's Game.
Yeah. So type that into where you want to watch things, and it's really interesting. She set up an underworld poker games, and famous people would want to be going to these situations. It was only invite only, you do come across some interesting stories for sure.
Yeah. Talking about interesting stories. This is probably the worst segue the world's ever seen, right? But we talked about briefly before, just talking about, I don't know, we started getting onto science and life and meaning and underground, the deeper stuff, underground poker rings. It doesn't get more meaningful than that, really, does it, in life? But we were going to do this podcast ages ago, and I think you got too busy. And I'm kind of glad that, in a certain sense, we didn't do it, because now that's not the right way to set this up, because we're about to talk about you having a heart attack recently, which is not something I'm glad about at all. But also, these conversations, they kind of need to be had sometimes. My father-in-law, I got a call. I'll tell you the story, and then I want to hear your story from this. I'm on a lawn. Got a call from my mother-in-law, and I never get calls from my mother-in-law. I'm on this lawn, and I stopped it. I'm on my stand-on Hustler, and I remember exactly where it was. Get off the phone, turn the thing off. I'm like, hey, Jenny, what's going on? And she's like, Rob's had a heart attack. I'm like, what? And you know what I mean? Like, you don't know how to process that information. And I was the first one that she called. My sister-in-law, so my wife's sister, they'd only just gotten married not long before that, and anyway, so I got a call. The rest of the siblings and stuff like that, they've flown him. He lives in a country town, a bit like you, kind of not the smallest town that you've ever seen, but, they got to fly him eventually to Perth and all that sort of stuff. And he survived it. He's doing well. That was years ago, kind of thing. But it does put a perspective on life. He was about 50, which is kind of that age where that stuff happens. But you're not that old, you know what I mean? And yeah, you put this post out not that long ago. Hey, people, this is what's happened. So, I mean, tell us the story of what happened and how has that changed your headspace and you're thinking about everything.
Yeah, so I had someone helping me most of last year, and they found something else, and I just booked in the one at the start of the podcast, Big Leighton Green Hedge. I had that booked in, and another one with the same client. So I had about 500, it would have been about 500 meters of Leighton Green Hedge to do, which was going to take two of us pretty much the whole week to do. And I had no other option but to do it all myself. So I pushed myself. It was long days. It was middle of October, so it was end of autumn and end of spring and leading into summer, and I had to do some big days, and it was really taxing on the body. And for a few days afterwards, I just felt unwell and had a couple of days off, and just knew that I needed a bit of a break. Then I went back to work on the Thursday, and I was just dealing with a few what I thought was stomach cramps, just under the rib cage and stuff like that, and went to bed and woke up on the Friday morning at 5 o'clock in the morning just with chest pains. And I'm a normal Aussie guy that sort of only go to the doctor if I really need to. But I knew something was not right, and I had a shower, and I was still planning on going to work, and I stumbled a couple of times in the shower, and I thought, no, something's not right here. So I drove myself to the hospital, and walked in at 6 o'clock, and I was lucky enough that no one was in the emergency part, and I went straight into the emergency rooms and stuff, and they started taking some blood tests, and I thought nothing of it. And then the nurse come out and said, "Oh, we're just giving you some aspirin to thin your blood." I didn't really ask too many questions about it, and then a doctor come in, and another doctor come in, and they said, "Oh, we've just been on the phone to the cardiac ward in Adelaide." And we're gonna move you to triage. And I was like, I said, doctor, I said, let's put all bullshit aside. I said, be honest with me here and tell me what's going on. I said, am I having a heart attack? And he said, yeah, you are. And I was like, okay, shit just got real.
Do you think that they were trying to calm the situation down? Like they didn't want to say it because then maybe you get more stressed and that you get a bit more, you know?
I think so. Yeah, I knew in myself that there was no point being out of, upset about it and all this sort of stuff. I was in the best place I could be. I was calm. I just needed to see my son. He was getting dropped off to school, and was lucky that we got him in time. And he walked in, and a room full of nurses and doctors, and one of the hardest things I ever had to do was tell my son that his dad was having a heart attack.
What was going through your mind when that was happening? Like you're saying, I'm in the best place. You're thinking about your son, but are you freaking out under the surface? Are you just going, whatever happens, happens? You know, where was your head at in that moment?
Well, it was a bit surreal. When you think of people having a heart attack, you think it's the whole sharp pains, and it was, keeling over and, really stressful, but it was all calm for me. I don't know why. I've got no idea. So it was the thing called myocarditis, which is a viral heart attack in the easiest way. So it wasn't something caused through blockages in the arteries and things like that. It was more, I had a viral situation, which my heart was thinking I was having a heart attack. So,
right.
So I checked myself in at 6 o'clock, as I said, and by, they told me we're organising a plane for you and all this sort of stuff to go to Flinders in Adelaide. And I was like, oh, so when's that happening? Tomorrow or the next day? They said, no, it's happening in the next hour. So by 11:30, 12 o'clock, I was on the Royal Flying Doctors getting flown to Adelaide.
So you obviously didn't die, which is fantastic. You're here today. What happened at Adelaide Hospital? You got better? How they treated you? What was the process like? Was it like they got it and it was all over? Was it a long process of you being like weeks in hospital? What was the situation?
No, so I was let out. So that happened on a Friday. I didn't get an MRI done until the Monday because it wasn't classed as an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
And then by Monday late afternoon, I was released. So I spent 5 days in there, and then I was, come back home, and I didn't work for about 3 weeks. And they said take 2 weeks off to, from when it happened. I wasn't ready to go after 2 weeks. I knew in myself that I wasn't right. So I gave myself, a bit extra time, and still today, I'm still not right. I get worn out pretty quick. I'm only just starting to get on top of ladders now to do a little bit of pruning because, reaching out is, just takes it out of you, the strain that you put your body through when you're on a ladder and you're reaching out over, a wide hedge. I've only just sort of started to do that now because I couldn't do it. And, any more than about 28 degrees at the moment just really knocks me about. So I'm only trying to work till 3 o'clock at the moment. I feel guilty sometimes about doing it, but I've got to listen to the body. And it was a close call the first time, and I hope it's not not something that happens again. But all my clients have been fantastic about it. They've asked how I am all the time, and there've been a couple of them that have gone and saw someone else to do it, and I was more than happy for them to do that. Like, it was just a situation that I didn't know if I was going to be able to get back into it. And there's been times where I've thought, I was getting better, and then you try and push yourself a little, and goes all right for a couple of days, and then all of a sudden it just knocks you about, and you sort of struggle for a few days.
Well, you're not an old guy either, really.
44.
So you feel like this, yeah. I mean, I guess this stuff happens. I mean, like, people know my story, and that I have an autoimmune disease, and at 26, I went from ultra marathons to not being able to work in 14 months. So
Yeah, wow. Okay.
that stuff happens, and that's one of the perils of this industry, in that you are so reliant on your body. And whilst thankfully it is uncommon to a degree, it still happens that people have health issues and things go wrong. And it's not, although we would like it to be, we all work until we're 65 and retire and no problems. It's a lot more complicated sometimes. It's even just general aging, like we talked about, earlier in the podcast. Like, people get old, and 50 is not the same as 40, which is not the same as 30, which is not the same as 20. And yeah, it's an interesting challenge for you now, because I can sense that, you've got that. You probably have that in the back of your head a lot now, going forward, planning. What do I do? Are these hot days going to keep getting me down? Am I going to get better in a month or something? Who knows?
Yeah, I'm just lucky that we don't have a lot of hot days down here. Where if I was working in Adelaide, where high 30s a lot in summertime, there's no way I could be doing it. No way. So there's been times where I've thought in the last few months that am I going to be able to do it? And then this is all I know. I've been doing gardening for just over 20 years and stuff, and it's all I know. I thought about if things weren't going to go, get better and stuff, maybe I could just grow my own plants and do all these sort of shapes and topiaries and all that sort of stuff, and and on sell them to the clients that I've got now. But I still want to be on the tools at the moment. I'm not ready to pack the hedges away and call it a day on those. So.
It's also, that work is a risk, is maybe not the right. It's just uncertain. Like, gardening services are always needed, but higher end or more specialized plants are kind of like, you know what I mean? It's not a, maybe I'm wrong here, but it doesn't seem like there's as safe a move for you to transition to something like that. You know what I mean? Like, maybe there isn't that much interest in it, and maybe you put all this effort in, the profit margins aren't quite what they need to be to sustain the family. Like, there's all that stuff. Even if you change business, and you always, that stuff plays in your head, and you're always thinking about it.
There's no way I would go and work in an office. It's just not me, But it's one of those things that I've got to weigh up now, because I don't know how long I can keep doing it. It was always one of those goals that to set this up for the kids and stuff like that, and hopefully they were able to take it on in in the future. But will it get to the point where I can keep doing it until they're able to do it? I don't know.
I wonder if there's someone who listens to the podcast in Mount Gambier who's like interested in working with you. If you are, people, hit him up, because that could be, because I think there's a level of, I mean, it always happens in business where it's like, as one guy gets older, there needs to be the young whippersnapper underneath who takes on that laboring and learns under the, all the 1%ers from the master and the apprentice kind of scenario. So I wonder if there's something like that could happen in there.
I
Yeah.
was always worried about training someone and, training them well enough to, they go and start their own stuff and, take your clients and all that sort of stuff. And because I'm not a local here, I'm a blow-in, what they call them down here. So, I'm lucky enough to build up the client base that I do have. But I was always reluctant to, teaching someone and stuff like that. But I'm at a stage now where if I can get the right person, I'm more than happy to teach them the way to, to go about things and stuff like that. Because I need to get off the tools as much as that I'm on them. And if I was able to teach someone that, is good at what they do, well, I get satisfaction in that. Job satisfaction is huge for me. And if I can train someone up to be, as good, that's a success for me.
Yeah. There's always that balance, because for me, one of the things I've been doing, because my health condition got a lot better about a year and a half ago. But there was 2.5 years there where I was not in good shape at all. And, could barely go to the shops on a bad day, on a normal day, very limited with time on my feet and things like that. But for me, I'm planning around being, I guess, more spread with my income sources. I've been very blessed in that the podcast has been successful, and whilst it's not bringing in like huge money, there is a lot of potential there in the long term to build up and have it be something sustainable. And we've got some other sources of content that we do in articles and eventually YouTube videos and things like that. I think going down that path there's potential there, but no, I definitely relate to that mindset of being like, yeah, I've got to transition myself out. And one of the things that we did is, I told you before, I think it was off camera, that we, a few years ago we had a much bigger team and we changed things up, but that was because of the health issues. We had to build up something, and managing a lot of staff. It's very difficult in this business to have sustainable, successful businesses at that size, working and in the residential thing, especially high-end work. And that's something I'm really working on, and we're really trying to behind the scene make systems and process and things that work so that people can hire people and have it be successful and completely step off the tools. But I'm not yet to see that work in anything other than a complete franchise system like a gyms or a large commercial business that kind of trades quality for economies of scale, and neither of those are truly appealing to me,
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I want to hire someone that loves doing what they're doing, because I've built a reputation here of doing these amazing hedges, and it only takes one guy to come in and not really give a shit about what they do, and just ruin these hedges, and and that's my name attached to it. And I don't want to hire someone that's just down here for a season of footy, and they don't really care about what they're doing, and and then 6 months time they're off to another town. And I want someone that actually cares about what they do and has got a passion in gardening.
Yeah, no, it's true, and they're rare, because the thing about it, and this comes back to money. It always comes back to money, and one of the things I try and talk to people about, and I believe that the idea that charging good money in business, people think that's selfish. I think that's a really dumb idea, right? It's not selfish to charge good money in business. And the reason we think that is because these massive corporations like Woolies is in the news at the moment because of price, suspected price gouging and things like that. Yeah, those massive corporations rip people off. Small businesses almost never do. Small businesses often rip themselves off. Small businesses often undercharge. And what I think happens when a small business gets some steel in their spine and they charge really what they want in their heart. The number that they know they're worth, and it's not a rip-off number, it's not a disrespectful number, it's just a good number. What that allows them to do is work less, which means they spend more quality on their time, on the job. They're really focused on it. They're not rushing around like a headless chook trying to make everybody happy. And then they don't need to hire somebody who's going to drop the ball just to make ends meet or get through their workload. And then they spend more time, with the family, and they can go on holidays or whatever that they may not have been able to do before. And all of that actually, you know what that leads to? Better work, a better person to deal with, a less stressed person. I think in the long term, the business that charge well actually deliver the higher quality services than all the 1%ers. How many times when I was early in the business, undercharging, stressed off my head, would I drop balls because I was juggling too many things, trying money that I could have solved that just by charging 20% more. And some people, it's not even about making more money, because some people need to charge 20% more and work 20% less. So they're making the same money, but they're making it off less hours and not burning themselves out, So that's a passion of mine. And you listened to the podcast I did recently on the hourly rate stuff, which, it's all very, very fascinating what happened in the last year. But I think a lot of people are waking up to that same point.
Yeah. Yeah, you charge a, you do a premium job. I think you've got to charge a premium rate for sure.
Mm.
I'm not one that, I don't like to do, I mow about 7 or 8 lawns. That's all I do. And a lot of them is through a corporation down here, like mowing lawns. I get bored of mowing lawns, unfortunately. Stick a pair of hedge trimmers in my hand and I can go for hours and hours.
Yeah. Well, mate, you know what? I feel like whilst I could keep talking to you for hours, I think we covered some pretty good things here in the end. Some pretty meaningful stuff. And look, maybe we'll have you on one more day, because we didn't even really touch on your techniques much at all, except for the beginning there. But I really appreciate the story that you have there. I think your work is fantastic. And I wish you all the best. And obviously, because you got a big following on Instagram, that means that you're a really good contractor. Because I think that you said those two things correlate really closely, didn't you? Well, mate, thanks for coming on. I appreciate the time. And where can people find you?
On Instagram at Diamond Quality Gardens. You'll find me there. There's no other accounts on any other social media platform. I know there's been some fake accounts, but that's all I'm on is Instagram. So shoot me a message there if you're in the area.
Yeah, and I reckon if someone is thinking about moving to Mount Gambier, or they're in Mount Gambier and they go, do you know what, I'd like to work underneath this guy, and you're not the type of person who's going to steal his clients eventually or be, a horrible employee, hit him up, because I reckon you could learn at least one or two things,
I'll try.
Thanks, mate, for coming on.
Okay,
I'll see you guys. I'll see you all in the next podcast. All right, friends, before you go, firstly, well done for making it to the end of the podcast. Secondly, if you have made it to the end of the podcast, you obviously liked the podcast. If you do like the podcast, which you clearly do because you made it to the end, unless you fell asleep or somebody held you against your will, maybe you're the passenger and the driver put the podcast on and it was too awkward to tell them that you didn't like it and you think the host is an absolute wanker. And so you just sat there and suffered. But everybody else, other than those two scenarios, you probably do like it. If you do like it, can you share it? Can you comment? Can you give us ratings? All that sort of stuff. Support in some way, because this is not a big production. And believe it or not, those little things actually make massive differences to the algorithm, helping people find the podcast. And ultimately, if you enjoyed it, maybe somebody else will. So I'd really appreciate it. Thanks for supporting and listening all the way. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Anyways, I'll see you in the next podcast.